So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this recording of Amplience, and we're going to go through a whole set of questions with Frontastic, and I'm delighted to be joined this morning by Thomas. Thomas, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll go after you.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Hello, all, and first of all, thanks for having me today. It's really a pleasure. My name is Thomas Gottheil. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Frontastic. I'm in the digital commerce space for almost 20 years now. Helped a lot of brands and retailers doing their online businesses. Started my first company in 2005. That was a model where we really developed together with brands and retailers full commerce online shops. And that got more and more in system integrator agency model because it got more and more important for the retailers to do it themselves and not doing this by an agency or the model, or really a shift to an agency model. And that was not my world. So I always really believed in building scalable products. So I decided then, that was now 3 years ago, roughly, to start with Frontastic. And we will talk later a little bit more what we are doing.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, maybe I'll go next. So my name, folks, is James Brooke. I'm the CEO and founder of Amplience. Amplience actually stands for Amplified Experience. It's a concatenation of the two words. And when we founded the business back in 2008, we'd come out of agency and system integration land ourselves, Thomas. So my world for about 10 or 12 years prior to that had been the big system integrators, so the likes of Sapient, where we did a huge amount of e-commerce and sort of digital marketing platform build out using lots of old, now old technologies like ATG and Vignette and Interwoven, and all of the sort of first generation of really kind of scalable digital products. Along the way, I spent some time working with a guy called John Williams at LBI, and John and I spent a lot of time on whiteboards trying to work out how to build better systems. And John's a great technologist in the sort of e-commerce and CMS space. So John and I had always had this plan that maybe we should go and do this better. So eventually, I convinced John to come and join Rory and I at the business back in sort of 2010, and then we really set to work trying to reinvent content management. So
it was 2010. The word headless wasn't existing there, right?
No, it wasn't. And in fact, our original plan, Thomas, was to build systems that were quite simple for marketers to use, but actually really rich in capability, particularly around the interactive side of things. So we originally had a framework built using Flash. Would you believe it? It's a dirty word these days, isn't it? But Flash was the technology, that enabled marketers to do something a little bit more interactive and interesting back in the day. Of course, Steve Jobs rather killed that plan with his Flash is dead comment, and the iPad didn't really support it. So in the end, we rebuilt everything as HTML5, and then subsequently moved everything into the cloud. We actually built a product called Dynamic Media, which was very similar to the Adobe Scene 7 product.
Yes.
And which really is headless image and video content management. And that really taught us how to do things at scale. And then we took that approach into CMS.
It's great to hear. We have some similarities here because in our agency model, it was the same. We invented also something similar called M11, also dynamic image server. And for me, it was always a question, and that was my driver always, to see this whole commerce thing not only from the technology point of view, but also from the business-driven point of view. And that is what I think where we and our companies are very similar. So it's really this business-driven thing. So how can you empower business people, marketing people in a headless world? Because headless sounds fine and it has many benefits, but it is headless, right? So
this is very true. This is very true. And we're going to come on and talk about that in a minute. But before we get there, I guess, I'm kind of keen to understand, what Frontastic's all about. So if you could summarize for me the value proposition and why customers buy from you, that would be really helpful, I think, for everyone listening.
Yes. So I would say in one sentence, we really help to make headless work. And not only to make headless work in a setup phase, but also in the phase that follows after that, because that's what it is about, right? To really scale the business and find new initiatives and iterate from day to day and make the commerce experience better. And so when I started or had the idea of Frontastic, I mean, headless or API first, that is a super great enabler for developers. So from this point of view, it's great because developers break free from the monolith architecture and have more freedom to do stuff they need to do, they want to do, getting more agile and getting faster. But the problem with headless is that it's not directly empowering the business users. And when you have a look in bigger organization, then it's always collaboration between technologists, IT department, and marketing teams and business teams. And what we do with Frontastic is that's why I said we make headless work, because we really help the developers that they can create in a very efficient way. So it's very front-end centric, front-end components. We call that programmable blocks. So that's kind of a low-code environment where you can create in a very fast way those components. And then we have an experience editor where the business teams can use that, but we don't care about the underlying data. So we have no content management inside our platform, but use, for example, Amplience for that. So that's the main idea. And the value proposition is really time to value. That's what we care about.
Sure, that makes good sense. So most of your customers, I assume, are retailers. Is that right to say?
Yes. So we see a lot of digital, let's say digital first brands and retailers. That can be a retailer that has also brick and mortar stores, but often it is really pure plays or direct to consumer brands that want to create a very, very great customer experience eventually.
Yep.
Yes, and that is where we help.
Yes, so there's been a big trend for consumer brands to try and build direct relationships with their customers. I think social media has changed their access to consumers in quite interesting ways. And of course, they've been building direct to consumer channels. Did you see any impact from COVID in terms of how the lockdown affected consumer behavior? Did that drive any changes in your customers and the way that they were thinking about their experiences?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a really accelerator, because what you saw when COVID started was this hyper growth in commerce. So 3 years growth in 3 months, that is what you see. But still, it's only 30% online and 70% brick and mortar. So there's still a lot of room to really not only create a new online shop, but think about what can be digital business models. And this is the thinking, really, to think about that. How is the transformation to those models? That is what we see. And of course, what we also could discover, and that's then the question between headless on the one hand, and on the other hand, just taking a Shopify for bringing your online shop in 2 days online. That's the one thing. And that is, of course, what you also could see, that you find more and more those initiatives. But the other thing is what can we do as a company besides just delivering the products online? So how can we differentiate and how can we make things better for the customer? And this is something that COVID definitely has triggered.
I think you're right. Absolutely. I think the phrase that I've heard, and we've used it at Amplience quite a bit, is digital first and customer-centric.
Yep.
Really putting customers at the center of that whole business process and thinking about things, as you say, from their perspective. How do we make the customer's life easier, fundamentally?
Absolutely. But the other reality is, in IT projects, it's so often that the companies think from the back end to the front end, right? So it's they start with the back end and then move towards the front end. And what I really like, and that's also the Amazon thing they do, is really to think from the customer and then move backwards, of course, with great technology. but really think first, what is the use case? Where can we differentiate? And that is, I think, where you with your product and we with our product really fit to in this new thinking.
Well, I totally agree, Thomas. I think the opportunity with headless technology is actually to build much better digital experiences that are more customer centric. I think the reality of some of those older platforms is the inbuilt assumptions about the front end experience permeate the whole platform. So the data model very much has some assumptions about the type of interaction pattern that's going to get used. They become really quite hard to change as that consumer behavior changes and as you need to adopt new channels or create different services. And what we've really seen is some great innovation in the front end, I think, and that's the exciting part about headless. And I totally agree with you. It's a difficult concept for customers to get their heads around, forgive the pun, because it's headless is a sort of oxymoron, isn't it? It's all about everything. Every customer experience is a head, so you need some heads. It's just you don't want a system that has some assumptions built into it about how that front end experience is going to be. And I think that's what we can really help customers to do.
Totally agree. And the question for the head is then, where do the companies have to do plumbing work, where they are not differentiating? And that is what I often see, that they then care about really the basis foundation to creating that. And first of all, put a lot of personalities in that. And then they never come to that point to differentiate. And what I think is use headless technologies and also more the front end side then really to have more time for differentiation and for innovation.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the key. Otherwise, we're really just solving the same problem with a slightly different technology. And I think, while there's probably some benefit for the IT folks in doing that, I think that rather misses the point. Great. So I think we've covered off the bases. Let's go a little bit deeper into some other terms that I think some of the people watching this might be struggling with. One of the things that we've talked a lot about recently is MACH, microservices, API first, cloud native, and headless. Maybe you can help break that down for me, Thomas, for the benefit of our listeners.
Yeah, I don't like this word, but I often say best of breed. So it's really to get the best pieces you need for your use case as a company to fulfill the best customer experience. And this is for me what MACH stands for. So you find a lot of business services, often from a backend side or process side that offer a special domain, but do this really, really good. No matter if it's A/B testing software or recommendation software or commerce or headless CMS, etc. So as a company, really just pick the services that fulfill or give you the possibility to fulfill the best customer experience. Pick those services. And the great thing is with MACH, that's what the A stands for, the API first. That is really, you can use this as a service and you just plug in the API. And this is something that 10 years ago that the concept was already there, but cloud was not far enough, etc. It was not reliable enough. But today it's working. So really, for example, choose Contentful for headless CMS or an Amplience or on commerce tools. Have a look, what are the best systems you need to fulfill this. And this is why I really think that MACH gives companies great possibilities to just create a better customer experience, because that's what it is about.
Yeah, absolutely see where you're coming from in that regard. I think the challenge, of course, when you buy an e-commerce suite is that all of those decisions to some extent have been made for you. You can, of course, replace all the individual components, but it's quite expensive and it's quite difficult. And I think MACH gives you the kind of Lego building block approach. The composable approach is the other way to talk about it, isn't it? Which enables you to swap out various components to do exactly what you want. So I don't think you have to compromise anymore in the customer experience you want to build, nor the way in which you want to build that. It's something
that's a great
Yeah.
That's a great metaphor, right? Because you can start building your Lego house,
Yes.
but then you can still decide to change components, to add components. So
yeah.
it's really made for iterative projects and to let's say learn and improve. And if you come to a point that you say you want to cover another use case, then just plug in the next block or the next business service.
Yes, exactly. But then, and I think there's a big but with this, and we talked about the beginning of our discussion, the business user experience can, as a result, be very, very fragmented. So you end up with, 10 different systems with 10 different admins and probably some cross-functional workflows that are quite difficult to achieve.
So, I mean, what you do, as far as I understood, Amplience, is really to take care of this part and to give a possibility. So in comparison to Frontastic, we are even a little bit more front-end centric. So with us, it's really about assembly the front end. And we don't want, or you see today in headless a limitation that the assembly of the front end is completely a developer work.
Yes.
What we do with Frontastic is empowering the business user as well. It can be a product owner, can be another business user that has the possibility to have also this kind of Lego blocks in the front end. And this is what we care about. And then you can connect this to API services like your software.
Yes.
And with that, it's really, it gets much easier to stay flexible, to iterate, to test things. Yeah, that's what is Frontastic about.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think, and the way I think, we're doing the integration and it all works together very nicely. As you say, you can define the front end experience without code, which is a huge benefit if you're trying to make change quickly. I think that's one of the great benefits of this new world, which is more low code, ideally, getting towards no code, where customer experience change becomes as simple as making content change. And I think that's a really great way to empower the business user to really achieve the vision that they have.
Absolutely. So I personally, for companies that really want to differentiate, that low code is a limited use case. So of course you can use that for some proof of concepts, etc. I believe for really meaningful experience, it will be the combination of no code for business people, but in combination with a front-end developer. Because the front-end developer then has the possibility to concentrate building something great and not doing the boring daily stuff. And because the marketeer said, please color this button from green to red, that shouldn't be a task for the front-end developer.
No, absolutely not. I think you're quite right. It's amazing how many customers, we run these sort of consulting processes in customers called diagnostics and discoveries. And they're mainly to help the teams internally think about content strategy and really the customer experience that they're trying to create. What we often find is that developers are doing content change, and they're doing really simple experience change, like you've just described, day in, day out. And it just seems such a waste of great resource.
Absolutely. That doesn't make sense at all. So
doesn't make sense at all. No, absolutely. So I guess if we're thinking about how does Amplience and how do Amplience and Frontastic benefit customers, it feels like we've got a fantastic joint value proposition here. Amplience can help our customers create much more content, drive that content into the experience. You guys are really helping customers to configure and manage that experience, without huge amounts of technical overhead. I think one of the things that implies is that customers can actually iterate much more quickly to a better experience, and do that in a way that maybe uses some different tools like testing and personalization that they can't get to at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we say to Frontastic, it's at the front end, it's a forefront of the front end. So we have a concept that's let's say API orchestration, where you easily can integrate different services, but then empower the business users to use those data from those services. And yeah, then in really relevant projects, of course, and especially in commerce, it's a lot of other technologies like tracking, like A/B testing, recommendation, etc. And at some point, everything needs to come together, and then it's directly linked with the front end itself. And yeah, that is what we are doing. That's why I often talk about some kind of new role. It's a front end manager. It's not the content manager.
Yeah,
it's a front end manager. Maybe you use similar like that experience manager or something.
well, experience management, I guess, is the catch-all term for all
That's
of the
right. Everyone is talking about experience, right?
Everyone talks about experience and everyone talks about experience management, and everybody means something slightly different in my experience. It's just how it works. But I think experience management is sort of the key, in the sense that you have to put control over change of that experience in the hands of business people, not developers. And I think that's really what it means. How you actually split that apart, I think there are a ton of quite complex front-end change configuration management, actions that need to be performed. I think they're probably better performed in a Frontastic than they are in an Amplience. And then there are a whole set of campaign management, content management, tasks that I think probably sit better in an Amplience. And that's why I think the two platforms together hold such promise from a customer's perspective.
Absolutely. And this in combination with a good commerce backend software, that is then really a nice play. Because then you have everything really to power whatever you want to do as a use case. And it's then with a combination, it's for the business user have fun again in more fun again in a headless world.
Yes. Well, that's it, isn't it? I think in an ideal world, you get all the architectural benefits, all of the IT benefits of this MACH approach to building your infrastructure. But you ideally get a better business user experience.
And then at the result, a better performing site, because if the business people can do more without needing all the time the developers, then just the result is better. They start getting creative. They start to iterate, to test ideas out, and that ends up in a better conversion rate.
That's it. So I wholeheartedly agree with you there. I think the opportunity for customers is to take a more iterative, test-driven approach to improving the experience over time, and get away from this sort of annual or semi-annual replatforming or rebrand or redesign process that they're going through, because it doesn't really make any sense anymore, does it? It did back in the day when maybe the consumer didn't change much in the space of 2 or 3 years, but now consumer behavior is changing so quickly. I think you have to iterate all the time to keep up.
Absolutely. It's maybe big words, but we are really working on that to kill the relaunch, because that is something I saw in the agency often, that after 3 years, so you just started new and created everything new, and then you lose so many good things as well with the relaunch. Yes, and that is really a possibility with MACH, with headless, that you don't need to do that, because you can continuously change things and make it better.
That's it. That's it. So it's a brave new world, but it sounds like a very compelling new world, Thomas. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun over the next couple of years as this whole transition in the market, really begins to pick up pace. Let's end this discussion with some thoughts on what we think the future brings, actually, for the next 12, 18 months, because this year has been a very strange year, let's face it. And fingers crossed it won't be like this again. I think there was a lot of unfortunate negative impact from COVID, and obviously it's been a huge impact on society and how people have been able to go out and interact and behave. It feels like, we're getting to a point, fingers crossed, where that will change next year and we'll be back to something like normality. But what do you think will go back to where it was, versus what do you think, what are the changes that you've seen this year that you think will stay?
Yeah, so I mean, the brick and mortar, that is something that is, of course, also in the next years very heavily changing, and it will go more and more to really let's not say online shop, but to new digital products.
Yes.
That is what I believe in. So that will be often very transactional driven projects, experience driven projects, but completely, I think every company has to become a digital company. Otherwise, you won't survive. So that is the thing. I think it's from thinking of a classical online shop to really think, what are differentiating products the companies can offer to their customers? I think that is something we will see more and more.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you think as trends for the next years?
I think one of the things that we've seen obviously is this huge trend to work from home. And at Amplience, we've got great offices in right in the centre of London in Covent Garden. They're empty at the moment. We've got a big development and support office up in the north of England, which is pretty much empty. I think what I've said to the team is, look, we don't want anyone to feel under pressure to come back into the office before you're ready. So everybody can work at home, but we would like to get back to some regular cadence of people being in, because I think what you miss is the sort of serendipitous creativity, just the catch up and the discussion that happens when you're in the office. And I think although there are many benefits to working from home, I think people have missed actually the social element of work as much as anything. But I do think it's going to be, it will never go back to where it was before. And I think that's exactly the same for our customers actually. Yeah. So what we're seeing is much more investment in tools that they can use to work remotely and to collaborate remotely. I think there's a big change in the way in which our customers want to create the work products that they need in order to do what the organization requires of them. And I think that's a positive change. It's going to be much more investment in everything from messaging tools to video conferencing, but also to better software, frankly, that helps them to get their jobs done.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I talked about that. We are a fully distributed company from day one, so we never had an headquarter or office. Started to go this way, and the first. I mean, 3 years ago, that was another model of thinking. Now, after COVID, the people are getting that more and more, that it makes sense. But I can say we are a fully distributed company, but still what we are missing right now is just, normally we have 4 times a year an all hands retreat, retrospectives, etc. That is fully missing. So so I really believe in that idea of distributed teams, but from time to time, it's great to see each other for getting into social contact, etc. So let's hope that will change soon again.
Well, I'm sure it will, and it's just getting the balance right, isn't it? I think, as you say, it doesn't matter. It's great your model is totally distributed. I think that is the future of many technical businesses. But as you say, even then, you still need time to get together and really get in a room and. I miss the whiteboard. I have to confess. I'm a white sort of person. I like to draw the boxes and diagrams that help me think.
James, you can put it behind you and then do video meetings with a whiteboard behind you.
Yeah, I know. It's just not the same.
You're right. Fully agree.
I think the other big thing, I'm interested in your thoughts on this, that we have seen from our customers is the integration of the internet into the devices themselves. So this whole Internet of Things, way of thinking about building digital products. I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that, Thomas.
Yeah, that will definitely continue in the next years. I mean, we talked 12 months ago, we talked a lot about voice, and doesn't seem that it is yet there. Because I really would say, because the user interface for that is not solved, so that is still missing. But at some point, we will see new devices we don't know yet. And that's even more important why API first is so meaningful to be open for the future. Honestly, I can't say what it is in 5 years. And today still the web applications are a very big part of the experience. But of course, that will definitely change. We will see a lot of more devices, or maybe we don't see any device anymore because it's everywhere. So
could be. Totally pervasive digital environment that we're in. Anyway, I think that gives us a lot of great content, Thomas, to put together for our listeners. So thank you very much for joining me this morning.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.